All right, folks, Jeff finally got a memorable URL. It's jeffsawesomepods.com. His two main shows are going strong. Shattered Worlds RPG is an actual play pod featuring spaceships, magic, zombies, and, yes, robots. And Foolish Wits is a weekly chat show about writing, Shakespeare, daily nonsense, and comedy. Find all the info you need at his sweet-ass new URL, jeffsawesomepods.com.
This is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Some Spoiled, A Song of Ice and Fire 2, the co-host switcheroo. The rereading, Return to Westeros, HBO Spoiler Edition, uncut, uncensored, and too hot for TV, bringing you the greatest hits from 2000. 22 years ago. Call in with your requests now, and we might get to them in 23 years. In this episode, Rashawn and I cover chapters 4 and 5, Tyrion and Davos, in which each of them wakes up to find that their world has crumbled around them.
It's true.
Welcome to Unspoiled.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now kings are dying like flies.
I am the king!
Fuck the king.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
So these two chapters are a bummer, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. These are
Man.
reading them for the second time because, you know, the whole
Right.
little things got jumbled around a bit for us.
A snafu.
A little snafu, yep. But we recovered. Reading the comments in the ye old Discord, people had feelings about how we opened last week's episode, and those feelings were mostly in league with our own.
Yeah. I appreciated that because I really wasn't sure if people were going to feel as strongly about that post as I did. And I had a couple people who were like, I have also been somebody who had tended to defend him a lot. And after this, I'm kind of like, wow, I really was giving you more credit than you deserved, I guess.
I want to say I appreciated, for the most part, people being supportive, if not disappointed, if we decide to sort of rage quit this. And then it took a turn to people discussing other properties that they sort of had to rage quit, which I enjoyed because The Walking Dead kept coming up.
For those who aren't aware, The Walking Dead is a show that I rage quit at the finale of season 6, and I should have quit sooner.
Yeah,
to be
I
honest.
went even longer than 6.
Did you? I didn't realize that.
I did. I went at least another full season, and then I started doing the thing where I'd watch the premiere, I'd watch the mid-season finale. And then, the mid-season, it would come back after the winter or whatever, and then watch the finale for the season itself. So I would watch, big 4 episodes. And then I would go back and fill in the middle at my leisure, when I felt like
what
it,
a wild approach. Okay.
Because it was still a thing that was being talked about in a lot of places I spent time at on the internet, So I'd
part of the zeitgeist.
Right. So I'd want to just kind of keep my finger a little bit on the pulse. But it's been at least, I don't even know where they are. I literally don't know what season is airing right now. That's how long it's been. I don't even know what number we're on at this point. I think the last I watched might have been when Rick died. Spoilers.
Spoilers. For the worst show ever.
Did not die. just rode off into the sunset in a fucking helicopter.
I swear to God. I heard about that, and I was just like, yeah, thank you for validating my choice here.
So, and I think that was the one where I was like, all right, show, you don't have any respect for me, and I don't seem to have any left for you, so let's just walk away.
Yeah, it's like a bad relationship where you finally realize, oh, we, like, hate each other, actually, a little bit.
And then you would see, like, out in the wild, people posting about updates, so then I would know, like, different beats of the show, you know, based on... So, like, Carl dies. I don't know, like, how he died or whatever, but that's the thing that happened at some point. I have no idea who's left, if anyone. I guess Daryl is still around.
Unsurprising. They will never kill him.
And, I mean, I guess, like, why would he leave? You know, this is all fine and good, so... and that's pretty much it. So, yeah.
Yeah, normally I'm like, sorry for spoilers, guys, but honestly, I'm not. You shouldn't watch it. If you haven't gotten to the parts we're talking about, good. Don't ever get there. Don't do that to yourself. There's, like, this is a show I consistently bring up as an example of bad writing. So...
It was so bad, and I just kept fucking, you know, just powering through. They kept doing this thing where it was like, we're going to take all your characters that you know and presumably love, and then just make them act wildly out of character for no reason. And also, you know what we're going to do? We're going to just keep fucking splitting them up.
Yeah.
Because it creates, like, drama and tension. But why would this group of people who have been living through this horror show keep splitting fucking up? Like, why would...
Yeah, it just became so repetitive in the way that, like, it kind of reminded me of Lost in some ways, and granted, it's way worse than Lost. But, yeah, the same kind of problems were just happening over and over, and it felt like all the show ever had to say was, man's the real monster. Every fucking... That was like the takeaway for all of their storylines was just, well, you know, who's the enemy here? Is it the zombies or is it mankind?
Well, spoiler alert, it was mankind.
It was the writers. That's who the monsters were. The real monsters were the writers we learned to hate along the way. Anyway, how did we get on this? Talking about things that I rage quit. Right.
Yeah. And how generous everybody was with our, you know, discussion of the possibility. But I wanted to say that I don't have any plans right now, you know, of quitting the series. It is not... doesn't feel like my hands have been tied yet. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I feel like this book is where things will begin to deviate enough from the show that it will begin to catch your interest, and you're just going to be curious enough to keep going. But we will see. We will see.
But yeah, so these two chapters, they're fucking dark.
Yeah, they are.
But this Tyrion chapter, because the Davos one is desperate, but it's a very different kind of desperation.
It ends on a kind of high note. Yeah.
It does. It ends on like a little bit of a high note, at least like a note of being saved, that he's not going to be in peril. You know, he's not going to just die sitting on this fucking rock, stranded. But the Tyrion chapter was dark, but in a very different way. And I have to say, I was surprisingly here for this very angry, bitter Tyrion. You know, in a way that, and I hope, like, hopefully this will be less and less of a thing, as you said, as we continue to move forward, and the book is very different from the show. But this Tyrion, like, show Tyrion could be, you know, disappointed and angry and bitter, but it was always sort of couched in this sort of
compassion and humor.
This humor that made it feel like he can only sink but so low.
Right.
You know, like, fundamentally, he's a, air quotes, good guy. Mm-hmm. You know, he's one of the good guys. But this Tyrion is angry. Mm-hmm. Like, legit angry. And it is an anger that I 100% think is justified.
Yeah. And
he has every right to be as disgusted as he is with the whole lot of them, you know? And also, this has him being afraid for his well-being and afraid for his life, especially being kept in Cersei's keep, in a way that feels like, as I was reading it, I was like, oh, he has to move. This is not safe. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that was another thing that I didn't really get from the show. Even later on in the show, which I guess this is becoming in the book eventually, but even after in the show when he kills his father and before he kills his dad, when he's arrested for treason or whatever in the show, right? And they have the combat, the whatever with the Viper. There, I knew he was in danger, but I don't know if I ever believed that something terrible would happen to him.
Right.
Even though the show had shown me multiple times that, yeah, we'll kill your faves. Mm-hmm. I just never felt like Tyrion was in peril in that way. This shit, I was like, oh, he needs a guard on the door. Yep. You know, I need like an official taste tester because they might try to poison him. You know, like I just felt very, very worried for his well-being.
Yeah, I experienced, I think, the same kind of sinking feeling that he does as he learns one after the other, each of the allies that he has made being sent away, being like they have died, they have been
banished,
paid, or they
bought
have
off,
just wound up being given a present by somebody not him, so they don't really owe him anything anymore. You know,
and when your allegiances are based on, for him, his ability to pay, all you need is somebody who's willing to pay more.
Yeah.
Or you have your ability to pay jeopardized by being, like, you know, out of commission or whatever the fuck. And those alliances evaporate.
Yeah.
And I think that as I was reading the books and I was, you know, and Tyrion was better positioned in a place of power as the Hand and as a Lannister, and he had all his little allies around him and the Mountain clans or the Moon clans, and it started to feel like he was kind of untouchable, you know? And I had forgotten that he paid for all of that.
Yeah.
And all it has to happen is for that money stream, that revenue stream to be interrupted. So yeah, I was just, this was, and then the thing with his dad, you guys. But before we get to that, it's Bronn. I love Bronn so much.
Fucking Bronn.
I love him so much. Like, I just, I haven't had enough yet. I think we talked about it in the second book about, like, the difference between book Bronn and TV show Bronn. But this Bronn, who just does not give a fuck about telling the truth.
Oh, right.
You know? and like, not even trying to be, like, tactful about it, but just like, oh, that motherfucker's dead. It's basically at one point he says when they're talking about the he calls him worm food, talking about the missing cousin.
Yep.
Just like, stop, you don't even bother wasting time looking at that motherfucker's been dead. Tyrion, when Tyrion really, also about how, like, in jeopardy he feels, that it opens up with him having fear when Tyrion realizes that somebody's in his room with him and he doesn't know who it is yet. And there's a real moment of him just being like, I am not safe here. Oh, yeah.
Yep. There's just a series of moments where, like you said, the feeling of his power has just shifted so completely. And he had felt like he was on top of the world, even with the difficulties that he was having reining Cersei's impulses in sometimes, or her being sure that he's against her in a way that he's definitely not. There was still a feeling of, yeah, but he's clever, he'll figure it out, and he has so many people backing him that are benefiting that it'll be fine.
Right. And also, this feeling of the people that he was dealing with, knowing that he's so much smarter than them, made me always feel like he was going to be okay. Because I was like, he can think himself out of the situation. He can outthink this adversary. Cersei, he can think circles around her. He's going to be fine. But you know who's smart? Tywin.
Fucking Tywin.
Tywin's real smart, y'all. He's real smart.
Tywin is somebody that I use as an example all the time of liking a character that I know is garbage just because they are so smart and competent.
Yeah, it's a real problem.
Real problem. I don't like that about myself, but there it is. I did a Hard Choices episode, which is something that is hosted by Miles and Megan Bob. For those who are not familiar, it's basically a who's the most fuckable podcast about various fandoms and things, and we did one about Song of Ice and Fire, and Megan Bob really convinced me that Tywin would be such an amazing dom in bed, and I just immediately started to be like, all right, well, maybe I'm so into that.
That feels right.
Yep.
That feels right. I think that they might be onto something.
There are some dudes who have major power in life, and then in bed, they want to be dominated. That does not strike me as the type of man that Tywin is, though. I think he wants control in every area of his life. There's no spot that he feels like giving that up.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that he is... Whatever areas of him that exist that might lean towards subbing... is he has closed off entirely many years ago,
Yeah.
He just beat it into submission. He beat his own submission into submission.
Oh my god, I love this. He's such a dom, he even beat himself up.
He yells at himself in the mirror every morning.
So, all right, let's start at the very beginning. Like you said, he's nervous that somebody's in his room and very aware that, if Cersei was the one behind Mandon Moore, it will take absolutely nothing for her to manage that again when he is unconscious and in Maegor's holdfast, which is basically her territory, essentially.
Right. As far as we can tell, she has not actually made any attempts on him, though. On his life since he's been at the holdfast. And I am wondering, Tywin is she's been busy. And part of me is that's probably all it's been. But I'm sure there's more to be considered. I don't know if she would... she could have just had him poisoned while he was out of it, just a little extra fucking dream wine or milk of the poppy or whatever, just a little bit too much, and that would do the trick, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So I have been rummaging around in the back of my brain is wondering I wonder why she hasn't. Is it because she doesn't feel threatened by him now that her father's there and he's no longer hand? Or is she just distracted by other things, wedding and all that other stuff? Or is, I'm just I'm just kind of curious about, because it almost makes you feel like he's being paranoid because he's been laid up for a week now or two, completely vulnerable, and yet he's fine. Nothing has happened to him.
So do you think that there's going to be another attempt?
Part of me, and this is probably wouldn't stand up to any scrutiny, which is why I don't engage a lot when in comments and stuff. But part of me almost feels like she wouldn't try it with her father around.
Okay.
And when I say that doesn't stand up, I'm sure there's a million ways she could probably try to get away with it, make it look accidental or whatever. I think it is not so much that I think that if my thinking that her father being around is what's keeping her from doing it is almost just purely psychological.
Right.
Not any kind of her father would catch her and she'd be afraid of what he would say or, not like that, but just oh, my dad's here though.
Yeah. No, I totally get what you mean. Is like, there's a feeling of it previously because they didn't know Tywin was going to be coming in to save them. They weren't aware he was on his way. So her whole thing before has just been struggling directly with Tyrion for power and say. And if her dad's here, he fucking clearly hates Tyrion.
Yeah.
So she does not need to worry about, right, a competition with this guy.
I'll tell you what I am curious to see in the books. Whether or not there is a similar, on Cersei's end, a feeling of wanting to engage in a power struggle with her father. And I say on her end because I don't think Tywin would even consider her, capable of engaging in a power struggle with him.
Yeah.
But, like if there's going to be a real bumping of heads because Tyrion is like out of the way now, but her father is there and he is just another obstacle to her being like the person who's running everything. And right. I know that she thinks she can run everything. I imagine she thinks she could be just as smart as her father if given the opportunity. And I'm wondering if I get to see her like try to actually, pull that off. Or if she just backs down away from thinking that she should run everything because her dad's here now. I'm curious about that.
I guess we'll have to wait and see. So, yeah, this, he even says, not dead, though my sweet sister did try. And he has a moment of like, I maybe shouldn't have just blurted that out. He really but you know what? Fuck it. He's so over all of this shit.
I love when he realizes that it's Bronn, he tries to be like, the fuck, dude? I asked you to come here like 2 weeks ago. And Bronn is like, first of all, calm down. It was 4 days ago. And I have been here twice. You were just fucking unconscious.
And it turns out that Bronn has been knighted, and his sigil is a flaming chain green on a smoke gray field. I'm Sir Bronn of the Blackwater.
Yeah.
So, I love that we get to see in real time how some people make their sigils. It's just fascinating to me.
Yeah, so this is I'm telling you, when I'm trying to picture it, like, I feel like it's the Blackwater, but it's all like green from the wildfire, right?
Right.
It is the giant chain thing that Tyrion installed, but it's on a very dark gray wool. And I'm just like, but why the gray? What is that?
Smoke.
Oh, is that smoke from the fires?
That's what I immediately pictured, but I'm not. Right. I don't have anything authority on that. I just like, if I were going to do a background, I think I'd probably pick black personally, but I could see the smoke thing with gray.
Okay, that makes more sense than what was going on in my brain. Because it
says smoke gray field. That's the way he says it.
Does he?
Flaming chain green on a smoke gray field. Yeah.
Oh, that's what Bronn says. You're right. I'm reading Tyrion's version of what it is, but you're right. Like a few beats down, Bronn does say that. Yeah. Smoky gray field. Yeah. By your Lord Father's command. And Tyrion is like, your Lord Father's command, huh? Yeah. I don't care for that.
So, them has survived the fight at the Winch Towers, got ourselves dabbed by the High Septon and dubbed by the Kingsguard, took half the bloody day. And then he gives a report on some people that he's already heard about, the Hound and whatnot.
And there's this bit, too, about Pod that he says he has a knot in his tongue the size of Casterly Rock.
I swear to God, poor Pod. He's doing his best.
And he says, I don't trust half of what he tells me. And that bit, though, it's like, not that I don't trust it, I think he's lying to me. That's more of I don't really trust his judgment.
I think so, because he's like so innocent, maybe.
Yeah.
Or like maybe the way he's like telling me is garbled because he doesn't know how to make himself speak. So he's only getting half the information out past his tongue-tiedness.
Yeah. Tyrion says, I told him, I wanted him to tell me information about this guy, and he comes back and told me he's dead. And I guess Tyrion doesn't believe it's true. Because when Bronn is like, yeah, Sir Jacqueline or however you say it, yeah, he's dead. Tyrion is like, oh, wait, but how? And feels sick hearing that news because that was one of his, alliances. But Pod had told him he was dead.
I had forgotten that he told him that. Okay, right.
So,
and yeah, your sister sent the Kettle Blacks to fetch the king back. When the Gold Cloaks saw him leaving, half of them decided they'd leave with him. So the whole thing that Tyrion had been afraid of everybody losing faith the moment that they see that Joff is being led away, is exactly what happened.
Yep. And it cost this guy his life because this guy tries to stand up and tell everybody, no, you gotta, stay on your fucking post. You can't just desert.
Yeah.
And someone shot him through the neck. This is why, y'all.
What is it? He says, put an arrow through his neck. He didn't seem so fearsome then. So they dragged him off his horse and killed him. I was just like, well, I thought the arrow through the neck would have done that.
Right?
But I guess we really needed to let him know, like, nah, well, it didn't end there.
I had the same thought.
It's like, all right, I mean, we could add that to the story, but I don't feel it's totally necessary.
So, we find out that, Joffrey is fine. Tyrion wants to know, was he ever in any danger? Did he get hurt at all? Like anything? And no, nothing has happened to him. He didn't have a scratch on him. Mm-hmm. We also find out that the Stone Crows are still around, but some of the other of the Moon Clan have been like, he says they got chased away, and people like threw shit at them and yelled at them. And these people had just, like, fucking helped save your city.
Mm-hmm. Ugh. Yeah.
This is why people are not worth saving, y'all.
Honestly.
Don't save nobody.
That feels like the conclusion Tyrion is rapidly coming to. He's just starting to be like, oh, I see how y'all are going to be. Well, then fuck all y'all. Bye.
Yeah, that's what he should have said. Like,
but it's too late.
Yeah. So, then, he tells Bronn that he wants, him to go to Cersei and get Alayaya get her released, because this is over and we don't have a need for prisoners anymore. Mm-hmm. And we find out that, like, over a week ago, she was dragged out and whipped and tied to a post. And we don't know at this moment, like, why that happened, right?
Right.
When Bronn tells Tyrion that this is what happened, Tyrion kind of just goes inward and is thinking about, like, how this is his fault. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That he had installed her as cover and not really considered what that could mean for her.
Right.
And he says to Bronn something like, well, I told Cersei that whatever happened to her was going to happen to Tommen. And he feels, like, weird, because he's like, I can't do that to an 8-year-old boy, though.
Yeah.
Like, I can't, so she fucking won this round. And Bronn is like, oh, yeah, you don't have Tommen either.
I swear to God, every single thing that he's like, maybe I can do this, Bronn is like, about that. Just like, is that fucking one gift? Loss after another. L. I really did feel for him on it, though. I did.
Yeah, it's just like you said, it's brutal. And Tyrion is left thinking again, like, the people I hired have fucking bailed. My friends, have been beaten in the fucking public square.
Yeah.
I won this battle for them, and I've been rotting in this fucking room for weeks that nobody gives a fuck about me anymore. Like, what was any of this for? Is this is it?
Yep.
And, he asked about the Renly's ghost thing. Because that is just really, like, you put all this work in, and then some fucking ghost is going to ride in at the last minute and, like, be heralded as the hero.
Get all the goddamn credit. Yep. Honestly, that feels so real, too.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a couple of Renly's ghosts in my own goddamn life. And they're all at my job.
Oh, that's so true. Yeah, so the Black Ears died for them. Whilst Tyrion lay drugged and dreaming, his own blood had pulled his claws out one by one. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the Alayaya whipping, Renly getting the credit, and then he asks about Stannis, who just managed to get out of there because he wasn't on the other side of the chain. And Robb Stark attacked Duskendale. And what Bronn says, there's some of his wolves burning their way down toward Duskendale. Your father's sending this Lord Tarly to sort them out. Lord Tarly, by the way, Samwell's father. I'd half a mind to join him. They said, it said he's a good soldier and open-handed with the plunder. The thought of losing Bronn was the final straw. No, your place is here. You're the captain of the Hand's guard. You're not the Hand, Bronn reminded him sharply. Your father is, and he's got his own bloody guard. What happened to all the men you hired for me? Some died at the winch towers. That uncle of yours, Sir Kevin, paid the rest of us and tossed us out. How good of him, Tyrion said acidly. And then he's basically like, I will keep paying you, so don't fucking go. And he's like, well, all right. Mend and Moore drowned, and he's like, I don't know how to pay that guy back because he's dead. Yeah. So what am I going to do?
He wants to learn as much as he can about him, and Bronn is like, he had eyes like a fish, and he wore a white cloak. What else do you need to know?
Eyes like a fish. So, Tyrell's, like, Marjorie has won the favor of everybody because she is gorgeous and part of the family that's feeding people for free. And then he yells for Pod and wants some clothing to change into. And it turns out his wound in his shoulder is so bad that he can't actually get changed into a shirt. He can change his pants, but he just has to wear a robe because he can't move his shoulder enough to get in and out of a sleeve.
Yeah, like the injury to his face is what's like the most jarring, obviously, but the wound to his shoulder is the one that feels like it's a, real problem.
Yeah.
Like it sounds like it's clearly still infected and all that shit.
Yep.
So, maybe Cersei was gonna like not kill him, but just like let him die from lack of proper treatment.
I mean, like, it's interesting too, as you say, it would have been easy for her to poison him. It would have been easy for her to just be like to the maester, like, you don't have to focus on that too much. Just hint, hint, nudge, nudge. And I mean, there's no better time for him to die in his sleep, and it seemed completely reasonable that he died in his sleep.
This is definitely like an opportunity that feels like it's not being taken advantage of, which is why I had questions like, why wouldn't you take advantage of this? Is a perfect setup.
Yeah.
Poor Pod.
Honestly.
Tyrion is like, bring me some garb, and Pod is like, bring you some what now? Some what now?
Clothes. Jesus Christ.
I felt like Pod should have got that. That is not that much of a stretch considering how they all talk. I feel like garb should have just been right there. But Pod
strikes me as the kind of guy who is going to say what, even if he does understand what you just said.
Oh, I do that.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
I am that kind of person.
It takes a minute for shit to register and then all of a sudden he'll be like, I got you,
I am like always like a 2 beats behind whatever conversation is I'm participating in. Like, it's just the way I process information. It's just how it goes. So they decide that he wants to see his father, which is why he's got to get dressed, and the trip from where he is to where his father is at the Tower of the Hand is not very easy.
Right.
And the first thing they have to do is get out of the holdfast, which means the drawbridge has to be lowered, and that becomes a whole thing because there's a guard there. It's fucking, who is it? It's fucking Meryn, right? Meryn Trant.
Oh, yeah, I forgot
dislike this guy. If you asked me to tell you one thing about him right now, I couldn't tell you, but I know I don't like him.
He is the one that has been ordered to beat Sansa, right? It's him that's done the beatings,
I think that's who that is, yeah. I know every time I see his fucking name, I'm like, oh, this asshole.
Yeah.
So the way they get through, though, is Tyrion is like, I have business with my father. And then Tyrion reflects that all you have to do is mention Tywin. And people snap to fucking whatever the fuck it is they need to be doing. And that is something Tyrion definitely has never had. People are not just jumping to when you drop his name, you know?
I strive to one day be this kind of person. But I just don't think that's going to happen. I think that ship has sailed.
Yeah. If that's going to be how your life is, I think you get an inclination by now that that's where you're heading. Not to say it's off the table, so don't give up.
I mean,
but,
the things you have to do to become that person, I don't want to do. I just want to have that power without the, like, commitment with personality, and that's just not how that happens.
That's true. That's true. Know? You have to be willing to do some real shit in order for that to be how people react to you. When Marlo say, my name is my name.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking about that. I got to do a rewatch of that show soon, I think.
I was just saying the same thing recently to somebody that I think I'm due for a rewatch. Oh, because there's a new show coming from David Simon on HBO about the Baltimore police. Yeah. That's due to drop sometime soon. And I was like, oh, I need to do a rewatch. But you know what, though? With Michael K. Williams being gone, I don't know if I can watch him. Because I still am incredibly sad about him dying.
Yeah.
In a way that I didn't even realize I was. I stumbled on this video of him that went viral after he died, but it's kind of old. Well, it's not that old. Of him dancing in a park to like house music. It popped up, I think, in my memories or something, and I watched it and I just cried.
Oh,
so sad about that. But yeah, so he drops Tywin's name, and that drawbridge comes down. And then they get to the tower, and Tyrion realizes that there is no way he can climb those stairs.
This is so embarrassing.
This is hard, right?
Yep.
And I want to be clear, like,
there's nothing wrong with weakness.
Exactly.
It's, but, like, we know exactly what this is costing him.
Yes.
After everything else that he's already lost.
Well said. Thank you. Because I would have, probably stumbled all over my words trying to get to that. But yes, exactly what I mean. And he's praying that at least it's so late that maybe nobody will be out, and so people won't see him having to be carried up the stairs. And they go through to get to the... Oh my God, there's this bit where they're like walking through, and it's just people everywhere.
Yeah.
And there's just not enough room for everybody. Everybody is here from the battle, and then every day more and more people are coming for the fucking wedding. So Pod is like, oh, the royal wedding's coming. Will you be there? Are you going to be strong enough to go?
Oh my God. Pod... Why are these the moments that you talk of your own accord?
I don't know why I laugh so hard at that, because I don't even think it's supposed to be funny, but I did really, really laugh at that, because it's just a real read the room kind of moment, And it just, I guess, speaks to Pod's just enduring innocence.
Yeah.
Like, despite everything that he's been privy to, right? Everything he's seen and all the things he's heard, and he's still just out here like, oh my God, this wedding is going to be lit. You going to come?
Oh God.
Like, he was there when Tyrion almost got murdered.
And he's like, aren't you excited to spend time with your family?
That just tried to murder you that I saved you from.
He has clearly not made the connections.
Oh, bless his heart.
Oh, you know what I wanted to mention, actually? Because Tyrion, I mentioned the Duskendale thing. And that is the thing that Roose Bolton, like, engineered. And this is a moment where Tyrion is hearing about a move that Robb has made that, to him, does not make any sense. Mm-hmm. And he's just kind of like, is he just finally making a fuck up? Because
That's
he's
right.
been really good about this so
That's
far.
true. He's like, yeah, this is weird. Like, why would he do this right now?
Mm-hmm.
That's funny, yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, because Tyrion clearly does not know everything that's happening.
No,
He's just, like, out of the loop. But it comes up later when he's talking to his dad, too, right?
I think it might, yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to give credit where it's due. This, because you said thank you for mentioning it. Thank you to Austin for sending us the notes where this is mentioned. I like to think I would have remembered that anyway, but I bet I wouldn't. So I'm just going to say thank you.
Oh, they bump into the new fucking chief or whatever. The goddamn, what are they? The Kingsguard?
Mm-hmm.
This Adam Marbrand?
Yeah.
He seems like an alright guy.
He's alright.
The thing that Tyrion says when he finds out that he's here, when Bronn tells him, is he says that he's similar to Jaime and that people love to, like, follow him.
Mm-hmm.
Which I like that, because that is something that I don't think we talk about often. Like, we talk about leaders all the time, right? But there is a certain capacity that some people have to, like, make other people want to follow you. Like, what,
Yeah.
and it's not exactly the same thing. It's not, like, inherent to being a leader, like, not everybody has that.
Right.
But when a person does possess whatever you want to call that, it is, I mean, that's how you become, like, people who start your own religion, like, there's something about you. And at first, like, you want to think, like, my first impulse was to think that, like, oh, he must be, like, really charismatic, because Jaime is pretty charismatic. Not only is he gorgeous and, like, wildly talented fighting and all that, but there's just something about him where you're like, yeah, that's a motherfucker I'd fucking follow in a battle, But so then we meet Adam on the stairs, and he just seems so unassuming.
Yeah.
It's not like the big personality I thought that I was going to get. And Tyrion is like, I don't know if I should congratulate you or say I'm sorry. And he's just like, a bit of both.
Yeah, I like that. He was just, friendly enough toward Tyrion in his way that I was kind of like, I feel like the fact that he's not openly hostile. God, what a low bar we've reached, though.
It's true, though, right? Like,
Honestly.
he didn't, like, try to kick him in the chest, knock him back down the stairs. He just climbed up. And we're like, oh, look, what a nice guy.
Christ. Well, never mind. I take back all the commentary I was about to make. So, okay. The meeting with his dad.
Yeah, this is fucking tough.
Yeah.
They get in. There's this quick little moment, too, where Sir Adam is just like, you'll find your father in his solar. And Tyrion is like, my fucking solar.
Nah, son.
Not anymore. And he goes in. His father does that thing where he's just like, addresses him in this sort of... it's not explicitly stated that he's displeased that Tyrion is here.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very kind of like...
What do you want?
Heavy sigh implied when he says his name. And then it just... nice to know that you still remember my fucking name.
This is so, like... So the thing... Tyrion, basically, what it comes down to is, like, are you going to acknowledge the part that I played in any of this?
Yeah.
And his reply is, oh, do you want a cookie? Do you want to be told that you're a good boy?
Yeah. But he said mummers and monkeys need applause. Mm-hmm. Which is a really shitty thing to say to someone who just wants to be acknowledged for something they did. To tell them that their expectation of acknowledgement is somehow debased.
Yes.
Ugh, it's gross. I don't care for it.
And... especially considering, like, he knows it's all about your approval personally, dude. Like, he is completely aware Tyrion just wants his dad to give a shit. And he just won't. He just won't.
Yeah.
As he makes explicitly clear when Tyrion says, you know what I want? I'll tell you what I want.
Yeah.
I want fucking Casterly Rock because Jaime took on a white cloak, which means that he can't inherit.
Yeah.
And he did that quite a while ago.
I was going
now.
to say, that was ages ago, and you have never once acknowledged that that is a thing that fucking happened. Like, you're just in this weird denial land. And Tyrion is like, why don't you fucking do the thing you should have did immediately when Jaime took the fucking job or whatever? Like, you should have immediately then declared me your true heir. That does not go over well.
Nope.
We find out, too, that fucking Baelish is getting all the fucking credit for the marriage. You know? For setting up the marriage. And Tyrion is like, that was my idea. But he decides not to say it to his father in this moment. Yeah.
And what his father says is, I can't prove that you are not mine.
Mm-hmm.
Which is really like one of those things that it could mean it's just because Tyrion is a dwarf and he is ashamed of having fathered a dwarf. Or he maybe really believes that Tyrion isn't his. And this has led to all sorts of theories about Tyrion not actually being Tywin's son. And it's just completely unclear whether that's based in anything or if it's just pure spite because of the way he just decided to word this at the moment, you know?
The thing about the idea that Tyrion might not be his trueborn son that is troubling for me is that Tywin is both holding up his wife and Tyrion's mother as like this martyr to Tyrion being born, like this victim of his birth. And like Tyrion stole something very precious to him, away from him, by, you know, killing his wife.
Right.
But then also, if you believe she cheated on you, though, then why are you holding her up, like, in this pedestal of, you know what I mean? Like, so they don't go together for me. I'm not saying it can't be, like, what's happening here, but it creates a real dissonance in my brain when I try to, like, you know, put those two things together. Like, and I guess if Tywin is experiencing that same dissonance, like, what if this woman I loved so much and cared about was the most important thing in the world to me really did fucking cheat on me and leave me with this monster of a child, but then she died, so I couldn't, like, confront her about it. So now it all has to play out in, like, this weird psychodrama with my child.
Yeah, this is... So, remember I told you about, like, the dragon has 3 heads and the theory that Tyrion might be the 3rd head of the dragon? This feeds into that theory. People who want Tyrion to be the 3rd head of the dragon pull this line out a lot as evidence that maybe Tyrion is, like, secretly a Targaryen somehow. And I'm going to be honest, I don't really buy it. I think what he meant here is just, you are an accident of nature and mischance, and I don't consider you mine, but since I can't prove you're not mine, I have to deal with this. I don't think he really meant that Tyrion is literally not his, but that's just my opinion. So... Yeah,
I don't know if I have one where I fall yet, as far as whether I think Tyrion is, like, literally a Lannister or not. I think my gut feeling this early on is that, because Tywin says something later on about how Tyrion is a punishment for some crime he's not really sure he committed, or doesn't remember exactly what he committed, you know, but that Tyrion exists as a manifestation of a, you know, punishment, and that he is a burden that Tywin has to bear. Right. Even though he thinks it's, like, patently unfair. I'm gonna come down on the side that I think that Tyrion is a Lannister. I think that the fact that when Tywin says, I can't prove you're not mine, it's almost like, yeah, I've tried. And I have not been successful and proving that you're not mine.
Yeah, I feel like the only thing about, you're talking about the dissonance between him seeming to revere his wife but also suspecting her of cheating on him, potentially it wasn't consensual.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
And that's the only thing that I can imagine, that might be at the root of that, but don't know.
Well, that is even more disturbing because the little bit I do know about this world is that I would have assumed that rape of a highborn lady, one would hope that it's not something that happens as much as it does with maybe like the smaller folk. Mm-hmm. But we know that the whole war was started because we thought that, the prince had raped another very highborn woman. Mm-hmm. And then if Tyrion is the son of a non-consensual attack, then I don't want to,
the feeling of being like a curse somehow.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
And then also, like, if I'm just a reader, I don't want Tyrion to be the third dragon. If that means, not that it necessarily means that it would have been a result of rape, but like if you take that into consideration, I'd rather just not think about it. Quite frankly,
and like talking about that there had been a war started about the assault of this woman. There's also the fact that Ser Dantos is out here warning Sansa that if Joff wants you, he can have you. Nobody's gonna do shit.
Yeah, it's true too. I guess it just depends on like the power of the person that wants to attack you. Mm-hmm. Much like everyday life.
Indeed.
At one point, Tywin asked Tyrion, did he basically like, did you get the guy who fucked up your face? And he doesn't tell his father, exactly what happened or how it happened. He just said, yeah, he's dead. Mm-hmm. And then Tyrion at one point is like, shouldn't you also be out there with Robb Stark? Like, dealing with that whole situation? And this is when Tywin tells us how they're planning to get Robb at Duskendale.
Yeah.
And then this is when Tyrion is just like, this seems really weird.
Yeah. Yeah, and basically he's like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I got it. Yeah. This whole... Also, there's also the bit about the Martells, and Tywin seems to really resent that Tyrion made a deal with them that involves getting, quote, justice. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And he's like, you promised them vengeance. And Tyrion's like, justice. And he's like, shut the fuck up. I said what the fuck I said, and you know I'm right. Stop it. And he just does not care for a lot of these little dealings.
Tyrion tries to be like, well, look, they're going to send us just one guy. So it's kind of like, he's going to be in our power. He's not going to come with a whole fucking assortment of guards and henchmen and etc. Mm. And the other thing that Tywin brings up is you threatened your own blood.
Yeah.
And Tyrion is acting like, how could you think I would really hurt him? Like, I said, I said it. I'm not going to say I didn't tell Cersei I would do that. But come on, I learned that from you. You always said...
You all right? I learned it from watching you.
And Tywin is not here for that, to have it turned back around on him.
Yeah, this whole thing with Tommen really has come to bite Tyrion in the ass.
It's funny too because it doesn't Tywin like almost begrudgingly want to be like, yeah, I understand you had to make a deal, but then like immediately after giving him like a half of an inch of acknowledgement, he just like flips it, and is right back to taking everything away. He does it like a couple times throughout this encounter of being like this close. Mm-hmm. This close to being like, giving him an attaboy, but just not being able to make his mouth say those words. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tyrion wants to know, like, you gave fucking Baelish Harrenhal, like, why would you do that? That, that's not a good idea. And, Tywin is, again, like, well, it doesn't mean anything as long as Roose Bolton holds the castle. Mm-hmm. But Baelish wanted it anyway, so I let him have it.
Yeah.
And,
there's a very strong sense for me of Baelish wanted it because he said you promised it to him one time, and then you were full of shit. So, you know. Yep.
Fuck. There's one other thing. I mean, there's a couple of different things, but there was, before, the whore thing doesn't come up until after he says he wants Casterly Rock. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I won't let you turn it into your whorehouse. And Tyrion's like, what the fuck do you mean? And then he realizes, oh, you're the one who had her whipped. I see now.
Yeah. And when he asked for it, the first thing Tywin says is, your brother's birthright? Like, still in that mindset.
Yeah.
But yeah, he is, and this is, I think we talked about this before. Oh, this is when he fucking calls it, you who killed your mother to come into the world. Ill-made, devious, disobedient, low cunning, spiteful little creature. Like, y'all, this is his dad talking to him.
Something about spiteful little creature is so much more dehumanizing than the way other people have insulted Tyrion so far. I don't know, like, maybe it's that it's coming from his dad, but I feel like there's something about it that makes him seem like goblin-like, you know?
Yeah, it's dehumanizing is exactly right. Like, he basically just called them it.
Yeah, yep.
You know? And he says, to teach me humility, they have made me watch you waddle around wearing that proud lion. Like, Tyrion's entire existence is an affront to Tywin. Like, and that is just such a... I mean, this is obviously, you know, it's played for dramatic effect because we are reading fiction. But there is a way this happens in our real lives as well, you know?
Yeah.
And I just, yikes. Yikes on bikes. For, like, anybody who has to grow up under this type of, I don't even know what you call this from a parent. It's like abuse doesn't even seem to do it justice. This is like
contempt.
It is a denial of your humanity. Like, you are no longer a person, you never were a person in their eyes. That is, whew. And that he focuses on Tyrion's, like, Tyrion and his whores is such a sensitive spot for Tywin. Mm-hmm. And I really am not sure I 100% get it. I mean, I get it, but it, to me, seems like a very flimsy thing to hang your hat on.
I agree.
You know?
It's like, if Jaime were out here fucking a bunch of whores, I just don't think it would be an issue. Mm-hmm. I really 100% do not think he would blink an eye at it. I think that he just has an issue with Tyrion, and anything Tyrion does, that's it.
I mean, because, like, not for nothing, but your fucking golden son is fucking your daughter, and you in your heart know this to be true. Mm-hmm. You have heard the rumors, you know it's true, and yet, as a person who holds the, like, pride of your house and your name above, like, everything else. I know a couple times he's, like, chastised them about, like, being an embarrassment to the family, but never, like, explicitly said, you need to stop fucking each other. Mm-hmm. I would think that the rumors of incest would be far more damaging to Tywin's pride than Tyrion sleeping with whores.
I mean... Yeah. I think the thing is that you are saying he knows it deep down, and I'm not sure that he really... I feel like most of the time when we say it, somebody knows deep down. We feel like there is a, like, consciousness of denial on their part. Like they are choosing to not look at the thing. Mm-hmm. And I don't feel like it's even that with Tywin. I think the idea is so offensive and repellent to him that he has not even let himself consider that it might be true. I think that that I won't go so far as to say he doesn't believe it. I will just say that the affront, as you say, to his pride and his house, this is just so incredibly unacceptable. And it is kind of an outlandish thing for people to claim. It's true, but it sounds like something that the New York Post would have on their front page, sort of thing, you know? So you can really hand wave something that's that wild pretty easily and just throw it on the pile of, like, haters gonna hate. So,
well, I mean,
clearly
that's what he's chosen to do. I mean, like, the way he behaves supports your take on it.
Mm-hmm.
I still feel like often whenever, you know how whenever horrific stories come up about, like, abuse within a family, and someone is always like, I didn't know, I had no idea. And I feel like, this is going to sound contradictory, but, like, usually, I had no idea that was happening. After a certain amount of time, and generally therapy, the person will come around to, you know what? There was always something in my gut. But it was so outlandish and so reprehensible that I then hand waved it.
Yeah.
And that's where I am with Tywin.
Okay.
I'm in that space.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I really wonder what would have happened if he had personally caught them.
He would have murdered them.
Probably, right?
He would have killed them in a rage. He would have it would have been one of those moments that completely fractures your psyche, you know? Yeah. And then probably killed himself.
Wow. Well, you know, I'm not sure I disagree with you, though. Yeah. All right, so it ends with, go back to your bed and speak to me no more of your rights.
Yeah.
This was the last time I will suffer you to bring shame onto House Lannister. You are done with whores. The next one I find in your bed, I'll hang.
Yeah. 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 Not great. Not great.
Then it's Davos.
Oh, you guys.
Davos is out here like, I'm good. Just let me out.
Yeah. He is really, I mean, well, he's, you know, it's been several days. He is, like, dying at this point of hunger and thirst, and it does not look great for him. But he's also replaying for us the moments of battle and how he managed to survive. And this just tremendous feeling of guilt at the loss of his sons.
Yeah.
And then he starts to think about how he's complicit. And where he ends up is basically this moment of crying out to the gods for mercy. And then remembering that he had actually low-key turned his back on these same gods. And you know, and watched silently as they were burned in order to then worship the Lord of Light, and how he kind of sat by and didn't say anything. Even though in his heart he never really gave over to Melisandre, he stood there.
He didn't take a stand against it.
Didn't take a stand against it, and he's really like beating himself up about that. And feeling like maybe he deserves to die this way. You know? He has no right to call on the gods for help. He abandoned them before they abandoned him is kind of like where he is. Yeah.
I really like this because it's not easy to write about a character having this sort of crisis of faith where they feel the guilt over, excuse me, the guilt over turning their back on gods and then assigning their current misfortune on gods. It's not easy to write this in a way that a reader is going to buy. Because it's just so easy for us from the outside to be like, the gods aren't real. Like, first of all, we don't know if the gods aren't real in this universe. Like, for all I know, the seven are literally hanging out in the sky. I don't know how this works here. So I will just say that right out of the gate. And secondly, all I need is to believe that he believes it. In a way, that I can, like, really grab onto and understand. And that's the thing for me, because a lot of the time when I'm reading fiction and there's a devout character, I can't understand that kind of devotion. It's just not in me for something that is unproven and unseen, you know? Excuse me. So oftentimes devout or pious characters in stories rub me the wrong way and feel really like sanctimonious and a little tedious, maybe a goody two-shoes occasionally, you know. It's tricky. It just really is. And I love that I completely believe Davos is committed to these gods and has actually had this moment of reckoning, really believing like, oh my God, of course, I just fucking watched them burn and did nothing. And I can't even be mad at them if they're like, boy, fuck you.
Yeah, he really is in this moment of being like, you know what, I made a choice. In my not standing up was a choice, you know? And this is kind of what I deserve. And then adding on to the guilt and shame he feels about sort of abandoning his faith, he then piles on how he has led his children into this war, into this battle, and none of them survived. And that he deserves that as well. That is also his fault, you know?
Yeah.
And he is at one point telling himself, not only does he not deserve to live, but that you deserve to die like this.
Right. You
deserve to just die alone in a cave, you know, lost and
abandoned.
Abandoned. Exactly, right, yeah. And he hits like a real moment of resignation, like, yeah, this is just it. And then he says, he has this moment where he feels like he hears, you know, I guess it's the mother, being like, you called for the fire, you burned us. And then he's just kind of like trying to bargain with this guy, which is another very human thing, right?
Yeah.
And
it wasn't me, though.
Yeah,
like,
right,
I was there, but like I didn't do it.
Yeah. And then even that, he ends up being like, wait, no, though. I'm the one that stood there. I didn't say anything. I tied that fucking flag to my ship. I went to the cave and watched her give birth to that demon thing. And yeah. Don't try to act like you're innocent now, buddy. It is just such a moment of, several moments of really facing your worst parts of yourself and your worst fears and like not flinching at the reflection. It's really remarkable.
I think that's what I like about it. And that's part of what makes it work so much, actually, now that you say that, is a lot of times it feels like devout characters are sort of deluded. And instead we've got somebody here who's using their devotion to really face themselves, which is just so rare to see depicted. And it's a nice sort of change from what I'm used to being the default, which is like, we're going to use religion to like excuse behavior, actually, you know? So yeah, I think that you might have gotten to the heart of the matter there with me, just being like, oh, hey, this is like a therapy session, a little bit. It's kind of a breakthrough over here. And yeah, he has a lot of grief for his sons. And it takes a while until later when he's suddenly like, wait, I still have others.
Right, yeah.
Like,
He's just, and because like as this is happening, he notices the sail of a ship kind of like way out the way. And there's just a moment of being like, it might be coming towards him, and if he doesn't act soon, it's going to be gone. And this is like right after he has been prepared to just lay here on this rock and die.
Yeah.
He gets a glimpse of what could be salvation and is ready that quickly to fight to live. And it's then he remembers that, you know what? Yeah, I have other sons, and I got a fucking wife. I'm like, what the fuck, dude? What are you doing? It's really, really well done.
There are a few different, like, little moments to her. I was like, oh man, this just feels so miserable. Like, he's so weak, he can't do anything but lay on his back in the rain with his mouth open to, like, get some water in his system. He's eating crabs raw and just, like, suck. And at one point he's like, yeah, let the crabs eat you, man. You ate a lot of them. You kind of owe them.
Right? It's only fair, you know?
I just felt like there's a few actually kind of funny moments. So yeah, it ends essentially with that ship and him, like, hailing it down, and then realizing after he's hailed it down that he doesn't know for sure that this is a Stannis ship.
Right.
And he's just like, fuck, which way do I play this right now?
I want to mention, too, we find out fairly early in this chapter that he has lost his little bag of bones that he wears around his neck.
Right, his luck.
Yeah, and that's sort of like the feeling of this whole chapter. It opens with just like that's it. He's out of luck. This is going to be it for him. It's curtains, I believe is how they used to say.
It's curtains.
It's curtains.
That really should come back. I do like that. There's a moment in Hocus Pocus where one of the witches says, and then it'll all be over. Do you understand me? It's curtains. And so many people are like, she was alive in a time before they ever said that. That doesn't make... And I'm like, wait, it's a funny line. Shut up.
Why would people do that?
You know how people are.
It's true. I do know how they are. They're the worst.
But yeah. So that's the missing finger bones. I mean, that also weirdly is a bit of a thing where he stops and is like, I kept this to remind me of my king, but I started to put my king above my gods, and we can't have that.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the, like, potential for change in his behavior going forward? Do you think there's going to be obvious changes? Or is he going to be sort of, like, sly and keep shit to himself? Or what?
Well, one of the things that he is regretting in this chapter is that he wasn't able to, like, save that Crescent guy, right?
Right. Yeah.
And the thing is, I think that, because when it ends, it turns out like it's one of Stannis' ships, right? And he's happy to say, he still says, my king, you know, my king is still alive. But I think the thing with Melisandre is going to maybe be a little bit more... I'm wondering if Davos is hoping that because of this failure at the Blackwater, that will be an opening for him to confront Stannis about Melisandre. How Stannis receives that, I do not know. I don't know. I'm actually really curious to get back to that side of the story, because I'm very, very curious how that goes when he has to go back home after this giant failure.
Right.
You know, and if it's handled differently than it is in the show. Because Davos was pretty... I don't want to say... He was kind of belligerent to Melisandre on the show as well.
True, yeah.
So I think it'll be kind of similar to that, and I think that he's going to probably try to use the failure at Blackwater as a way to maybe try to reach Stannis. I don't think it's going to be very successful, though, if the show taught me anything.
All right. Well, before we wrap, I just want to say hi to our one new...
Real quick, I wanted to add, though, I think, and I don't have any recollection of how this goes in the show. One of the things I think might be different is, if Davos says, I will not worship her new god, I wonder if he does, like, draw a line in the sand. And if he does, what is Stannis' reaction? Is it, if you don't serve my god, then you can't be part of my deal, and you're out of here? Or will Stannis be like, I don't necessarily need you to serve my god, I just need you to serve me? Because Davos is still totally willing to still do that, I think. So now I'm curious. I don't know, but I'd like to find out. Yeah. Because I don't know how Davos has this reckoning, and then goes back to pretending to worship the Lord of Light. Because it feels to me very much like when it came down to it, he could not live with that. You know, the shame of that was so great. I don't know if he goes back to just pretending. Okay, that was it. That was all. I just wanted to add that in real quick.
No, I mean, that's what I want to know. So, thank you. All right, so everybody just prepare for a air horn sound. We're going to be greeting our new patron, Brian Van Oppen. Welcome, Brian. Thank you for becoming a patron. We appreciate you.
You got a real Oprah thing going on there.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate that, too. And if you are already a patron and you're like, I really wish I became a patron during the time where you were doing this air horn thing, fear not. Just message me and I will say your name with an air horn. No problem. I'll do that for you. Go ahead.
Any excuse to bust out that air horn.
Literally.
So you would really be doing her a mitzvah.
Honestly.
Just go ahead and message her with your name.
Yep. People are just going to be sending in random fucking names. I'm going to play this for my girlfriend. Would you mind?
I like to make a special request.
This one goes out to all the ladies out there. All right. So thank you guys again so much for listening. We love you. Hope that you're enjoying the coverage, and, you know, don't be too worried right now about us quitting. You have plenty of time to worry about it later.
Yeah.
And until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Joffrey, Cersei, Walder Frey.